We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, before we begin, we would like to send our condolences to the Imam of our time, may Allah hasten his reappearance, and also to the Muslim Ummah on the tragic anniversary of the martyrdom of Imam Musa al-Qadhim alayhi salam. Now, most of us will know about Musa al-Qadhim being the son of Imam Sadiq, but one does not investigate enough on the life of Imam Musa al-Qadhim and also what sort of life he led and what sort of legacy he left behind. Imam Musa al-Qadhim unfortunately spent many years in prison, 3 different prisons, and eventually once he was martyred and murdered, his body was left on the bridges of Baghdad for the Shia to come and collect. Inshallah, speaking more on Imam Musa al-Qadhim is Sheikh Ali Ma'ash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Sheikhna, before we begin, quick question on Imam Musa al-Qadhim, because not only is he revered by the Shia community, Baghdad being a city of multiculturalism, Shia, Sunnah, Christians, Jews and so forth, the other scholars of other sects, what did they say about this great Imam that we had, Imam Musa al-Qadhim alayhi salam?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين عظم الله أجوركم وأجورنا. And my condolences and azaa to our Imam of the time, Al-Hujjat bin Hassan salamullah alayhi wa ajjallah farajahu al-sharif wa nahnu ma'ah. And may Allah gives us the opportunity to perform his ziyarah in Kadhimiyya in Baghdad inshallah as soon, and to lift this pandemic from all nations inshallah. With regard to your question about the Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam and what others have said about this great Imam, of course the Imam lived in a situation, in a place where there were other sects of Muslims in Baghdad, such as the Hanbalis and so forth. So, and of course the government was the non-Shia government,
Yes.
oppressed and suppressed the Shia of Ahlul Bayt,
Yes.
the Sayyids, the grandsons of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
And the Imam was of course one of the victims and shaheed of this nation. Let's look into the statements by the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah, what they said about Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. They're between 500 and 700 of the history of the Hijri date. So for example, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, a prominent alim in Ahlul Sunnah, he mentions in his kitab, the book Taqrib al-Tahdhib, he states about the Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, he says, Musa ibn Ja'far, means Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, Ibn Muhammad al-Baqir,
Yes.
Ibn Ali al-Sajjad alayhi salam, Ibn al-Hussein, Shaheed Karbala,
Yeah.
Ibn Ali, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayh, his agnomen or the title is Abu al-Hasan
Okay.
al-Hashimi. He's a Sayyid,
The tribe.
Hashimi,
Yes.
exactly. Then he says al-Ma'ruf bil-Kadhim, he is known as al-Kadhim, the title of al-Kadhim. Saduqun Abid, he is very truthful and worshipper, Abid.
Abd.
So
Ibadah.
that's the statement of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. The second alim, and in his book with the name of Abu Hatim, in his book Al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, he is an alim of the chain of narrators, the Ilm al-Rijal in other words, and the Hadith. So he states ثقة صدوق إمام من أئمة المسلمين, that Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam is a trustworthy person, and honest, and he's an Imam of the Muslims.
MashaAllah.
The third alim is Al-Dhahabi, very well known and famous alim in the world of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Al-Dhahabi, he's got a book called Mizan al-I'tidal. In his book, he mentions that Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam kana salihan, he was pious, abidan, worshipper, jawadan, generous, haliman, forbearing, kabirul qadr, he had a high status within the ummah. And other statements by other ulama as well. I'll just mention a few of them. Also, Ibn al-Jawzi, he mentions in his book Sifatu Safwa, he mentions in this book in Sifatu Safwa that كان يدعى العبد الصالح. Imam al-Kadhim was known as the pious and the good slave of Allah Azza wa Jal, al-Abd al-Salih. Why? لأجل عبادته واجتهاده وقيامه بالليل, because he was a worshipper and with intense worship during the night. When he spent his night in worship, in prostration, a prolonged prostration. I mean, if you calculate the hours that he made this prolonged prostration and sujood in the prison, it could be over 6 hours in some cases. So a long hours of sujood and prostration during the night and during the day. To the end of his statement, we have also Ibn Kathir in his famous book of Bidayah wa Nihaya. Again, he mentions Kana Kathir al-Ibadah, he used to worship a lot. To the rest of his statement, Ibn Taymiyyah, this individual who is the Imam of the Wahhabism.
Salafis, okay. He's one of the
Salafis, exactly.
His teachings.
Exactly.
It's his works, yeah.
He mentions about Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, he says, وَمُوسى بن جعفر مشهور بالعبادة والنسك.
Famous for praying.
The Imam is known, famous in worship, in ibadah, and nusk, in devotion as well, to Allah Azza wa Jal. So these are main statements of the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah about Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. But the thing is that makes us really unhappy as a result, that with all these praises, with all these mentioning of the Imam alayhi salam, now they don't follow the Imam as the Imam of of Muslimin. Although he said, one of them, that he is Imam al-Muslimin, Imam min A'immat al-Muslimin. How could they go and follow somebody else, a Khalifa for example at that time, who used to drink alcohol, na'udhu billah, and so forth, and commit all that sins, and they still accept him as a Khalifa of Muslims? Or an alim who is related to the government, he takes money from the government to praise the government, and so forth. So it's sad to see that at the end of the line, they would ignore, as they've ignored his grandfather Ali alayhi salam in the Saqifa, and they left him alone with the janazah of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, unburied and unwashed and unprayed on, and they went and they chose their own Khalifa by themselves. So it's very sad.
Thank you very much, Sheikhna. And quick reminder to all of you that this is a live show. We do take in your questions. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them via the WhatsApp. The email address Ahkam SOS at imamhussein.tv, or alternatively, why not give us a call 0203 515 0199. Inshallah, the Sheikh and I will be able to discuss and answer your questions. Sheikh, now let's kick off with loans. Now, according to the Islamic Sharia, am I allowed to give someone a loan and then request more back from them? For example, if I was to give someone 10 kg of wheat, but the agreement will be, I'll lend you 10 kg of wheat, but I want 12 kg back in return. Such a transaction, such an agreement, Islamically speaking, is this halal?
Not at all. This is usury or riba, and it's not permissible. You cannot give indifference when it comes to weighting things. You know, barley, wheat, whatever you weight, you can't give extra because of the quality, the difference in quality. So you give him extra in weight. Yes, you can buy, and then he sells you, the difference by buying and selling, and not by exchanging in weight.
I see. Sheikh, now a question from one of our viewers. and that is it permissible for an individual to sell $1,000 for $1,100 of the same currency to another person as part of selling or lending transaction?
No, again, it's not permissible. That extra $100 is known to be as riba again.
Okay.
You can't sell unless it's the currency is different. So that the 1,000 is pound, it's not dollars.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is fine, but when it's the same currency is the problem.
I see.
The riba comes inside.
Ahsant. Sheikh, another question from one of our viewers from the WhatsApp or email, and it is: the feeble-minded is one who spends his money senselessly and squanders it on pointless matters. Can such an individual buy and sell?
Well, one of the preconditions of buying and selling, that you have to make sure that the one who is involved in this transaction is not feeble-minded, or as known in Arabic, safih. You cannot sell to such individual or buy from him. Safih means somebody who spends his money without proper thinking and pondering and reflecting. He just spends it without, common sense. So.
Sheikhna, what is the ruling in regards to purchasing, like software or CDs or films that have, it says on there, trademark or copyright, or some sort of what's called intellectual property rights and so forth. His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani, he has a fatwa on this. How does he discuss this matter? What does he say?
His Eminence mentions that the copyright must be respected in somehow, and it is not permissible for the one to basically make these copies from the original if it's against the law and based on ihtiyat wujubi, obligatory precaution. So you have to avoid copying these softwares or CDs and such like.
Speaking on CDs and purchasing items, if a seller and a consumer have an agreement on they purchase something but the payment is late, so someone's going to purchase something in cash, but now the payment is coming in late, or the payment hasn't been made after a couple of days, what is the rights of the seller in regards to this transaction?
If there's such a delay in terms of receiving the cash from the other side, then of course he has the right to annul the transaction, to do fasakh, and to stop the transaction, go forward.
Sheikhna, if two people want to do a partnership, and as you know, we've studied in the Hawza and also with the fiqh books, when two individuals want to do a partnership, there's an agreement, there's a contract. Sometimes there's statements and there's like sentences and premises said to acknowledge and to start the contract and so forth. Sometimes it's in Arabic, sometimes not, and so forth. I mean, are we allowed not to do it in the Arabic language? Is it still valid? Does it still count?
No, the partnership is a valid contract. There's no issue with it. Two people come to with each other, and they agree upon some of the criteria and clauses, and they basically join in a partnership, in a business. That should be fine, as long as there's, as the Holy Quran states, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, tijaratan an taradin, trade by mutual consent.
Mm-hmm.
If both parties agree upon something, and they have written, let's say, documents and so forth, clauses and criteria and so forth, then that's it. They can go ahead with it and become partners in one company. That should be fine.
Inshallah. Ahsan. Sheikh, now we're going to go to a short break. Inshallah, join us after the break as we continue our discussion here on Ahkam SOS. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, this is a live show and we do take in all your questions. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask on any topic, send it in via the WhatsApp. Email address ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv, or alternatively, give us a call here 0203 515 0199. Inshallah, the Sheikh will be able to answer all of your questions. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
I've just reminded the viewers about sending in questions, and I believe we have another question sent in by one of the viewers, which is: nowadays dogs are used in rescue services to assist in searches and for rescue purposes or security purposes. Can one purchase dogs for the purpose or these purposes? His Eminence Ayatollah Sayyid Sa'id Hakim has a fatwa. What does he say?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Sayyid mentions that it is permissible to buy hunting dogs, but not other kind of dogs. So it has to be some kind of a dog trained for hunting and such like. Otherwise, you can't just buy, for fun. Especially those small dogs, and
I see.
to enjoy with them, to go out with them in the parks and stuff. You have to buy them for a purpose.
Yes.
And they are trained to do something,
Okay.
such as hunting.
Excellent. Shaykhna, another question from one of our viewers, and that is it permissible to purchase the bricks and timber belonging to a mosque?
You see, it is permissible if the Shari'i and legal trustees of the mosque allow for this to go on. And of course, to buy, for example, with the money of these sold bricks, let's say better quality bricks, for example, or other needed for the mosque, that should be fine. So you replace it with something better to refurbish the mosque, for example, that should be fine.
Shaykhna, my next question is in regards to shaving. Now, for men, shaving is forbidden, it's haram. But what about for our female counterparts? Is shaving also haram for them?
You see, we have shaving the head for the woman is haram.
Okay.
Unlike men who, let's say, shave in the Hajj, in their first Hajj to Islam, they have to shave their head. Unlike for the woman, they're not allowed to shave in Hajj specifically. They have to trim their hair.
Yes.
After the a'mal of the tawaf and the sa'i between Mina and Muzdalifah, they do taqsir and not shave. It's haram for them. But for us, we have to shave, for example, especially after the a'mal of Mina, where we shave as well. So the shaving must be only to what is required. For the women, of course, they are not allowed to shave their head. But other parts of the body, we have been encouraged to shave parts of the body to avoid excess amount of hair to be grown, which causes
just hygiene purposes and
exactly,
also to stop from
smell
diseases
and so
forth like that. Yes,
exactly.
understandable. Shaykhna, when coming from me personally, coming from a South Asian background, we use a lot of oil in our hair, and it promotes natural and healthy hair growth. Oil, not just oil, but any water products that you can put in your hair, wax and so forth, can be obstructive for water to actually touch the skin. Now, this is an issue when it comes to wudu, because when we have to perform the mas'ala, the oil can interfere. Now, specifically speaking on olive oil or oils like that, must we remove the oil completely in order to perform wudu or ghusl or so forth? Or is it okay if we have a little bit, or is it there's no issue with having olive oil in your hair and then you performing the mas'ala? It's not obstructive?
Well, olive oil does not block the reach of the water to the skin in wudu or ghusl. So it doesn't cause a barrier or obstacle to reach to the skin, so it should be fine to use it. And you do wudu on it, that's fine.
Excellent. Shaykhna, according to His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani, is it okay to delay your adhan and the salah for majlis and latam?
The Sayyid mentions that it is better to offer the salah on time, to pray on time. So if you can somehow reschedule the time of the majlis, for example, where you can start the salah first and then the majlis and the matam and the azadari, whatever is the function of the program. Schedule it with the time of the salah, either before or after. And then you can basically encourage others to pray on time as well.
Shaykhna, when we perform tayammum, you strike your hands on the sand or on the earth and so forth, and then you wipe your forehead with your palms. According to His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Wahid Khurasani, are we supposed to also wipe the eyebrows or not?
The Shaykh mentions that as a precaution, the one should wipe on the eyebrows as well. So as a precaution, ihtiyat.
Excellent. Shaykhna, what is the best way to confront the deviant ideology and sects as they are now growing more than before? I mean, even here in the UK, with the introduction of social media, we see so many debates happening on Speaker's Corner. So many people have their own YouTube channels, their own social media platforms in regards to discussing, sometimes even debating, even sometimes, making fun of and also humiliating different schools of thoughts. In this time, what are we to do?
There's a narration by Abu Salt al-Harawi, narrated that Imam Ali Rida alayhi salam, he stated, Rahimallah abdan ahya amrana. May Allah be the mercy upon those who revive our matters, who remember us. فقلت له, I said to him, وكيف يحيي أمركم? How can the one revive your matters and remember you? The Imam alayhi salam responded, يتعلم علومنا ويعلمها الناس. He would learn our knowledge, our ilm, and eventually he would teach others the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, such as their history, their ahadith, narrations, for example, and he would teach the others, especially the young generation. فإن الناس, the Imam says, فإن الناس لو علموا محاسن كلامنا لاتبعونا. If other people knew about our good words and sayings, they would follow us. Today, because Ahlul Bayt are not really in the front line of the media and the press and so forth, people don't know them. That's why they are still away from the true teachings of Allah Azza wa Jal and the Holy Quran.
I see. Interesting. Shaykhna, does Islam allow a Muslim to favor his own people and clan above others, driven by nationalism, in which promotes the interest of a particular nation?
In the boundary of Islam, there's no room for nationalism at all. Allah states in the Holy Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Surah 49, Ayah 13. The best among you in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal is the most righteous, the most pious. They are the ones who are better, no matter if they are from Africa, from Asia, from America. The most important that they are atqa, taqwa, God-fearing individuals. Even if they live in remote areas of Africa, of Nigeria, as long as they are believers of Ahlul Bayt and worship Allah Azza wa Jal accordingly, they are then better than those who might think themselves they are the best nation, for example, or best people because of their color, skin, and so forth. So taqwa is the most important in Islam. To have taqwa means you're on the top. That's why Salman, the Farsi, the Persian, the Muhammadi, became on the top list of the best companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abu Dhar as well, who was in the Sahara of the Arabia, a shepherd, became one of the best companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So taqwa is important. To do the wajibat, perform them on time, and refrain from the muharramat and the forbidden acts. That's taqwa.
Excellent. Ahsan, Shaykhna. Shaykhna, final question coming in from one of our viewers, inshallah. I have a question. In Nafla Shab prayer, do Adhan and Aqama have to be recited before prayer? So this is probably Salat al-Layl, one of the mustahab prayers, and Shaykhna, maybe any mustahab prayer. Is Ahkam and Adhan and Ahkam, that must be recited before?
Ayatollah Sistani mentions that the only Adhan and Aqama can be recited or performed in the daily obligatory prayers only.
Okay.
You cannot do the Iqama and Adhan in Namaz al-Shab or other wajibat such as Salatul Ayat.
Yeah.
You can't say Iqama and Adhan. Only the 5 daily prayers you perform Adhan and Iqama. That's it.
Even with Eid prayers, they say As-Salah 3 times.
They say As-Salah, 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 and then you join the Jama'ah for the Eid prayer Salah. So yes, the only Iqama and Adhan is in the
5
daily prayers.
Ahsan. Thank you so much, Shaykhna, for all your efforts, and thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. Inshallah, we'll be back next week with a new episode and new questions here Monday 6:30 on Imam Hussein TV 3. See you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.